Good morning and welcome to Peace Out, where we're all learning together to peace out. And boy, have I had some trial runs lately. Only trial runs look more like real life, right? Lots going on. I don't know if you got lots going on. I got lots going on. More than just in my head. And I did wake up with my head going this morning. So, and I am two sentences on the last page away. Okay, three sentences on the last page of being done with Command Your Morning. So be looking for that. I should get that published by the end of the week, early next week at the latest, because now is the hard part. Writing's not really the hard part. The hard part is going back and reading what I wrote. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes I go, did I write that? Sometimes I think that was really good. Sometimes I go, oh, back up, erase. Let's try that again. So there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on in my head, but I am on the last page, and so should be released late this week. I may set it for next Monday. It does take some time to go live on Amazon, but the Kindle the Kindle version will be pretty quick. It'll go up, and then it takes it a couple of days, 72 hours I think, to actually show up on Amazon. But probably by the end of next week, it'll be available on Amazon in print and Kindle, and I'll have the ebook available probably by the end of the week. Command Your Morning. It's actually been really interesting writing it, and it's helped me shape some of my own thinking, which is the whole thing we need to do, right? Okay, so this week, enough about all that. So this week, we're talking about different miracles that happened in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Now, that's not anything really unusual because God's still the same God, right? How we access Him, in the New Testament, God lives in us. In the Old Testament, He was with us, and that was the whole new covenant. When Jesus came, He broke down the veil in the temple and said, you have free access. You don't have to go through a priest. You don't have to go to a physical altar, and you have to kind of become the altar. You crawl up on the altar of life, so to speak, and you offer yourself to God as a living sacrifice, Romans 12. But we no longer have to go do all those things to try to just to prove we couldn't do it, right? That was what a lot of that was about, was just to prove that we couldn't do it without God. That's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So, but yesterday we looked at the feeding of the 5,000, feeding of the 4,000, and we looked at the story in 2 Kings where Elisha did the same thing. He had 20 loaves of bread and fed 500 people, and they were full and had stuff left over. Or fed, 100 people, and they were full and had stuff left over, right? Well, we're going to look at another miracle that happened in the Old Testament and the New Testament today. And we're going to go back to 2 Kings 5. We're going to talk about the story of Naaman. So Naaman was a commander in the army, and he had leprosy, and there's so much to unpack in this story. So I'm going to try to keep it short, but I'm actually going to write about this later because there's so much to unpack in this story. But his servant girl said, why don't you go to the prophet and let God heal you? So he finally sucked up his pride enough to go. And then Elisha didn't even come out and greet him. He just said, go wash in the Jordan, dip in the Jordan 7 times, and God will heal you. And it made Naaman mad. He was mad. He was like, why do I have to dip in the Jordan? That's a dirty river. Why can't I go to the clean river? Why can't I? Isn't that don't we have that in the back of our mind a lot? I don't know why this is happening. Why can't I have what they have? Why can't I do what they do? Why can't I do something different than what God said and still get the same result? Not going to happen. Anyway, so as the story goes, he goes and he finally, someone told him, I think it was the servants that came out and said, you know what? Had the prophet told you to do something really, really hard? It's not that hard to go get in the water. Go get healed or just stay sick, basically. That was not King James, of course. And so he finally sucked it all up and went and dipped. And that 7th time, he came up with brand new skin. It was that act of obedience. It was nothing special in the River Jordan. It was just that act of obedience, that act of laying his pride down and doing what God asked, right? Well, okay, let's shift to the New Testament. We have a story, and there's several stories in the New Testament. I picked this one, though, probably because it was the first one that came up, right? It's in Mark 1, starting with verse 40. It says, a leper came to Jesus and fell on his knees and worshiped him. He fell before him and he said, if you are willing, you can make me clean. If you're willing, Jesus, you can heal me. He knew God. He knew Jesus could heal him. And Jesus said, I am willing. be cleansed, be healed. And the leprosy, it says immediately the leprosy left him. I don't know if you can imagine, leprosy is a horrible disease. It basically eats away your phalanges, right? It can eat away your nose, ears, your fingers, toes, things like that. It literally can take away. So I don't know how far into what stage of leprosy this guy was in, but it was obviously visible, and then it was obviously not. What a cool miracle, right? What a cool thing for Jesus to do. And then Jesus gave him more instructions, though. He said, because he said he strictly warned him and immediately sent him away. He said, do not go tell. He said, see that you say nothing to anyone, but go and show yourself to the priest. So because they were still under the law, Jesus hadn't gone to the cross, right? He said, don't go tell everyone. And what did the dude do? He began to broadcast it. Now, look, I'm going to give the guy a break. Okay, I'm going to give the dude a break because I'm thinking if I had leprosy, I could see on my hands. If I had leprosy, I could see on my feet, and I knew it was eating away my life. And Jesus healed it. That would be the hardest thing in the world, to not run around going, look, I'm healed. I had leprosy. Remember yesterday you saw me? I had leprosy. Now I don't. Look, that had to have been the hardest instruction to follow in the world. So I get it. But Jesus told him not to do that. People would have seen it anyway. If the people who knew him would have noticed it, maybe they would have asked. I don't know, but he went and did exactly what Jesus told him not to do. Why did Jesus tell him that? I don't know. The next few verses, or the next verse, says that because his fame grew so fast and so big, their version of the paparazzi, right, chasing him, he literally couldn't operate in that area anymore, and he had to go to a secluded place because people were just gathering. He probably couldn't even hardly walk, like somebody famous. They can't hardly even, Elvis and some of them especially, they couldn't even go places because they were just swarmed. And Jesus was probably, I assume this is kind of what happened. He literally had, or that's what the verse says. It says he couldn't even operate there. He had to go to a secluded area, right? So maybe the guy didn't understand why Jesus told him that. Maybe the guy just flat had his own pride, and he just ignored what Jesus said. Well, if we look at these two characters that had leprosy, Naaman in the Old Testament, this dude doesn't even give his name. The New Testament doesn't give a lot of names, right? But we look at both of them. They both came, they both asked, they both got healed, but they both had some level of pride. And so as I was thinking about that, I was like, you know what? I think maybe, and I'm just going to kind of throw this out here, maybe pride is leprosy of our soul. Because pride prevents us from trusting God. We become self-sufficient. I can do this myself. But obviously Naaman couldn't. Obviously the leper couldn't. They needed that touch from God. The whole, but they still had that pride, that prohibited them from walking in what God gave them freely. They both got healed, but they both had soul issues, right? But you know what? In either situation did God look at them and go, I'm not going to heal you because you're just going to mess it all up, right? God still healed them, even though pride was an issue with both of them. Pride, and that's what causes us to do our own thing, especially this leper here that in Mark 1. Is it Mark? Yep. Especially this one, his own pride messed it up for everyone else because Jesus had to depart from the area because he couldn't even operate, right? And so I still stick by that thought that pride is the leprosy of the soul. Isn't that what caused the whole fall in the first place? If we go all the way back to Genesis, they looked at the tree and they said it had the pride of life. It looked good and it felt good, basically. That's reiterated the same in 1 John too. That's what trips us up. It's that pride of life, thinking I can do it better than God. I got this, God. Boy, I don't go into any day like that. I don't go into any day going, I got this. God, you just sit over there till I need you. I got this. Oh, wow, that's crazy. And then all of a sudden you're tripped up and you fall. Isn't that what the children of Israel did over and over and over and over again? They would go, okay, God, we got this. we're going to follow all these other idols. We don't need you. And then their world would fall apart. And then they would come running back, crying and whining. Oh, God, please forgive us. We chased other gods. We chased everything in the world but you. Please come back. And God would go, okay, I love you. I'm still your God. But does that play out in your own life? Does it play out in my own life? Yes, I won't put that on you. I think I can do it. And I get tripped up and I'm like, okay, God, I messed this all up. Can you help me? And he has never said no. He has never said, you got yourself into it, get yourself out. Now there are consequences and because of some decisions, they have to play out over time, but he has always stayed with me in those. He will not leave us even when we do dumb stuff, right? He doesn't leave us just because we make a bad decision or just because we even ignored what he told us to do in the word or in our heart. He still wants to be our God. He still wants to fellowship with us, and he still wants us to experience the fullness of the kingdom. I love that about God, that my own stupidity doesn't separate me from the kingdom. Making dumb choices doesn't separate me from the kingdom. Doing dumb stuff doesn't separate me from the kingdom. I'm sure God rolls his eyes plenty of times every day going, oh, she'll be back in a second, right? But he always welcomes me back when I repent of pride, when I repent of being dumb, trying to trust my own instincts rather than the word or what he said, or trying to make things happen in my own strength. He never says, yeah, you got this, go on. I don't care. Just go on with big bad self. Do it. No, he's always like, it's okay. I got you. Here's some grace to get you through today. My mercies were new this morning, whether you knew it or not, whether you acted on it or not, whether you believed it or not, his mercies are new this morning. He's got the peace for us that we need today. He's got the strength we need for the day. We just have to lay that pride down and come to bring our leprous souls, so to speak, to him, and he will heal them and wash them and cleanse them every single time. And that's why we can peace out. Peace out. Have a great day. See you again tomorrow.